Good evening, customers. Done a lot of videos in the past about ventilation. This house is a little bit unique, and just had a good situation to do a video about a house like this. So this house was, they have record of an addition that was like early 1900s. So the assumption is the original house was built in the 1800s. We don't have any dates as a result of just back then they didn't keep the records the same way that they do now. And this is in Golden, Illinois, and this house did not have the correct intake or exhaust ventilation. So in terms of a roof system, you want to think about exhaust and intake ventilation like an empty soda bottle, empty plastic soda bottle. So if you take the cap off and you suck through the empty soda bottle, it will collapse on itself. If you poke holes in the bottom of that soda bottle, then it'll allow air to pass through freely. So a roof system is the same way. Many people are familiar with exhaust ventilation. The most common form of exhaust ventilation is, I'll show you here, get her flipped around here, is ridge vent. So that's what we installed there, and we're still in the middle of this, so still got a little mess on the roof and that sort of thing. But so that's exhaust ventilation. Intake, other forms of exhaust would be box vents, those Whirlybirds or power turbines. They have solar turbines now. There's a few different forms of exhaust ventilation. The intake ventilation, the most common form of intake ventilation is ventilated soffit. And there's a few different ways to do that. Typically, I'll show you this house, and it's not, is this area. So that's soffit, right? You're familiar with that, right underneath the gutter. So some of your houses probably have something similar. If it's a newer age construction, it probably has little holes in it. Notice that that one didn't have any holes. And other people might have wood soffit with holes cut into it. So it has a vent that kind of looks like a floor furnace duct vent. There's not as many forms of intake that I'm aware of, but it's most common that it's vented through the soffit. Well, on early 1900 century homes, or sorry, I'm not trying to blind you with the sun, or late 1800 century homes didn't have that. Typically, they vented through gables. Some of them, if they were fortunate enough, had some kind of power to power a fan through the gable. But those are kind of lackluster, and it's difficult as a roofer, because I'm not an architect, to figure out what the gable vent actually ventilates and is it to code. So what we do on homes like this is we want to make sure that it has a manufacturer rating tied with it for exhaust and intake ventilation. And this home, we chose ridge vent. For gable homes, typically ridge vent is going to be the choice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best option for ventilation for every home. But that is what we chose to do here. And for the intake portion, we did this. So this is called deck installed intake ventilation, and you can see what it looks like there. And what this is 7 inches from the exposure of this shingle. So approximately in this area, we've cut a 1-inch hole spanning the length, not all the way to the end, we cut it short, spanning the length of the roof slope in that area. And that's not the first time we've done this. We've done this on a lot of different homes. And it's very common that that's the intake ventilation we install. There's some times where homes are available to put ventilated soffit in, because of the cost to build out an eave or reinstall soffit that's already there. Oftentimes we're finding that we're installing the deck installed intake ventilation just because it's a cheaper option for the customer, and it's still very functional. We follow it per manufacturer instructions. It's warranted for the same amount of time as the shingles, and it allows it to be warranted because it's an appropriately ventilated roof deck. So what makes this house unique is that if you look at the slope here, If you look at the slope, see how it comes down and it flares out? And in this situation, the roof slopes down and it has a transition right here. Okay, and let me stand back a little bit further so you can see what I'm talking about. So see how that transitions? And you can see how that flares out there. Well, what's happening in both of these situations, on that top portion, there's a kind of a wall that the rafters up there are sitting on, and then this is built out. So if we put the ventilation at the eave of this roof, or if we put this ventilation at the eave of this porch, there's a wall here. There's a wall sitting here that doesn't allow the ventilation to vent through. So we'd have the intake, we'd have the holes poked at the bottom of the soda bottle, but we'd have a spacer in there, a wall, and then we would have the top of the soda bottle open, but the flow would not happen the way it's supposed to. So this space is a non-conditioned space, and because that wasn't allowed there, we started the intake ventilation here, and we have the exhaust ventilation up there. Same way with this area, is we're gonna have the intake ventilation we had to bring past that barrier to make sure that the air could flow up, and then the hot air could escape at the top. So as hot air rises, it's gonna pull from this area and create a vacuum. So hot air rises, cold air comes in, and it starts a circle. Cold air in, hot air out. And what that does is it reduces condensation in your attic space. If you have insulation, which most people do, it helps keep the R value sound with the insulation. So if you think about blown-in insulation, once it gets damp, it gets heavy and it compacts. So you lose R value when it compacts. It's the fluffiness that gives it its insulation. It's like a fluffy jacket in the wintertime. But if it gets moist, it can compact and you can lose R value, which could lead to more problems. It can reduce mold with not having moisture. It increases shingle life, which is why the manufacturer for warranty requires an appropriately ventilated roof deck. It reduces the risk for ice damming. So hot air from your home in the wintertime melts the 8 inches of snow that's up there. On a big area like this, or like on those transitions, if it melts, then it could freeze and cause a dam and cause water to back up. But it only melts because the heat from your home is escaping through your insulation and being trapped in your attic space. If it's appropriately ventilated and insulated is part of it, it seriously reduces the risk of ice damming. So the title of the video is 1800s to 2000s. It does take quite a bit of material and labor to bring it to appropriate code. Every single home we do, we have a goal in mind, and that's per manufacturer instructions and per code. Sometimes NRCA recommendations are a little bit more stringent, so we definitely go that route. And then there's a few things with Right Rate Roofing, just some of the experience that we have, that we do a few things a little bit beyond. But the things that I'm talking about today, the big things, are just per manufacturer instruction and per code. So we did some insurance videos earlier this week, and I talked a little bit about code compliance. You could see how this roof just got new of what it had. It wouldn't have near the roof system, and we wouldn't be able to warranty it. This actually ended up being an insurance claim from a claim a couple years ago. They just now got settled up with their insurance company, so it has nothing to do with the recent storms. But they owed for these items, so this customer got paid for those items. And we were able to help them through that process, and now they have a roof that they can warranty, and should last a lot longer than what a roof just getting new of what you got would have had. And their cost is their deductible. So if you have any questions about how manufacturer instructions or code could apply to your specific roof system, if you have a home that is, late 1800s, early 1900s, and you're curious on you maybe had a couple contractors bid it and one's really high and one's not, they might be installing some of these materials. There's certain aspects for every roof that's a little bit different, and we'd be glad to talk to you about what makes those things different. So you can reach us in the link before or below, or you can reach us at our office phone, which is 217-779-7663. Again, that's rightrateroofing.com, grammatically correct, and the link's in the description. Or you can reach us at our phone number at 217-779-7663. Thanks for watching, guys.